Randall Lucas in the house. Come on up front for a question and answer session. So glad to see so many of you guys stuck around for this Q&A, because the making of this movie, I think, is just as fascinating as the movie itself. Here we go. Hello, fellas. So, Lucas, I guess I want to start with you, because the question everybody always has with this movie is, how the fuck did you shoot this at Disney World, Disneyland? I mean, how did you make this happen as a cinematographer?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those scripts you get, and the first thing you're like, huh. So now I've agreed to do this. How the fuck are we going to pull this off? I mean, probably the most publicized thing is how we basically just dug deep into 1930s Hollywood to see how they made movies before they had the lighting technology we have today. And a big part of that was learning to chart where the sun goes through the sky and plan every shot and know where it's going to be. And so we scouted for probably 3 weeks, just doing that and planning. We shoot this shot at 12:45, and we're going to run across the park. And by 1:15, we have to be set up for this next shot. So that was kind of the basic plan.
That is crazy. Randall, this is the kind of idea that most people maybe might have for a second and then just give up as being absolutely impossible. What is it that sort of sparked this for you, and what gave you the drive to see this all the way through to completion?
Well, I hadn't directed anything since college, and I thought I would just do something quick and dirty with a few friends of mine who were not very good actors. So then I started casting, which led to me needing a casting director, and it just sort of snowballed from there. Then I needed an AD for scheduling, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. So what I thought would be a very easy way to get my feet wet and go out and do something, to get comfortable again, directing turned into a monster that has consumed the last 4 years of my life.
Are you a Disney guy? Does this movie come from a place of someone who visits the parks a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I went a lot when I was a kid, a lot, with my father who lived in Orlando. So I was super familiar with the parks. And then when I had kids of my own, I went back, which was sort of the catalyst for making this movie. My wife is from a different country, and she sort of viewed the park through a completely different lens than I did, and then I started going back with my kids and looking at it as more of an observer than just a tourist, and seeing strange stuff everywhere. And then I wrote it. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it, sort of going back, but I just wrote it just to get it out of my system. And then I kept thinking about it more and more, and it really was the Canon DSLRs that made me think that it was possible to make it.
And was there ever a point when any security people were kind of eyeing you guys weird, or were you totally undercover the entire time?
Pretty much the whole time, except at the very end, they thought we were paparazzi following this famous family. They didn't understand why we kept following this family.
When you have to remember, people do really weird shit at Disney World. Really weird shit. So, sometimes we would, look around and be like, we are attracting the least amount of attention by holding a camera on, a normal Midwestern family. So, there's that.
I was really scared when we brought the actor who plays the man with the neck brace and the scooter in for the first time. I was like, this is going to be risky. Someone's going to, go, what are you guys doing? But he was actually, he was eclipsed by other people there, literally. And he one of the most normal people, not a second glance. So
your film couldn't even match the reality of the
true.
weirdness.
No, it couldn't. And it wasn't even as dark as some of the things I've seen. Because you see the whole range of emotions when you go to that park and you look at it from, more of an anthropological kind of viewpoint. You see every single range of human emotion, from ultimate happiness and joy to utter despair, and just you see people lose their minds and yell at their kids who are they're supposed to be they're giving them a magical happy day. So it's all there.
I remember when this premiered at Sundance, I think if I'm correct, it premiered over the MLK weekend, and people were wondering if that was because it was making Disney's legal offices be closed for the weekend and not get some kind of an injunction. The legal
I
aspect...
wish we were that clever.
That was really the theory everybody had. It was like, well, they won't be back till Tuesday, so...
I did think I heard someone say, well, at least we had the long weekend. But we weren't sure at Sundance if we would get through the first screening, let alone have a second screening. We didn't know, so.
I mean, can you talk about sort of because the question people have now is that the movie's been picked up and it's being released, is how is that even legally possible? Can you sort of talk about how, where this film falls under sort of fair use and satire and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, we've always contended that it's a parody and it falls under the fair use doctrine, and we've had it since Sundance vetted thoroughly by a lot of lawyers, and you know, everything else is speculation that's been in the press about, you know, what's going to happen to it, but it's going to be released day and date on October 11th. So, and we had enlightened insurers who understood, you know, what we were going after.
I want to turn this out to the audience and see if anybody out there has any questions. Right up here front, sir. Yes. I'm gonna actually repeat every question because we're simulcasting and they can't hear in the other room. So what has yay for the other room? What has been Disney's official response, if any, to the film?
There's been no official response from Disney.
Do you think? I mean, people at Disney must have seen it. Have you sort of heard through the grapevine?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to Imagineers and people up there. No one really up there, but the people that I know that work there, you know, at least to my face, have said they enjoyed the film, and you know, who doesn't like, you know, kind of giving one up to the boss every now and then. So, but you know, I don't know what I think their party line is. You know, you can read it in the trades. They're not saying anything. So,
anybody up there to the left? It's hard enough to manage kids at a theme park. How do you manage child actors at a theme park?
That was difficult. That was really difficult. Yeah, I mean, it was. It's hard to make a film, and it's hard to go on vacation with your family, and we did both at the same time. I mean, it was really like we had their parents. We did have their parents with them, but you know, these poor kids. We'd wait in line for hours, you know, shooting the scenes when they're waiting in line for Buzz Lightyear or whatever, and then we'd get to the front and we'd have to say, no, you can't go on the ride. Take them out, bring them back to the end and shoot the next angle, and they just wanted to go on the rides, you know.
So there's kind of like a sadistic pleasure into that. You see a kid go, after he's made your day hell all day.
Any other questions out there? Right up here. Can you talk about the French teenagers and where that idea came from?
Originally, when I was like going around the park, I noticed there were in the first script they were Brazilian, and there's huge groups of Brazilian tourists that walk around Orlando, especially, all wearing orange shirts, and they're all extremely happy to be there. They're singing and, you know, clapping in sync, and then I saw a lot of American teenagers, you know, more goth-like kids, the same age, who just looked miserable being there with their parents, and so I was really like, you know, interested by this strange, you know, dynamic between the, you know, the foreigners and the Americans. And then I wrote that in the script, and originally there was another group of like 2 American goth girls who we kept bumping into too, who were, you know, always like tripping him up and stuff, which didn't make it into the final version. And we also, you know, honestly, we needed a carrot to pull him from, you know, ride to ride and get him around the park instead of just having him walk around the family, you know, going from ride to ride. So that was the genesis of that. And then, you know, obviously their guys to, you know, get off on that stuff. So.
Anybody up in the back? Up, you right there, yeah? Is there anything different about the casting process for a film that's shot like this?
No, like I said, originally I was going to use my friends, and then that just quickly was a bad idea. So we held casting in LA and in New York, and once we found someone we thought was appropriate, instantly we told them, you know, what the deal was, because we didn't want to get them really involved and have them go through wardrobe and all that stuff, and then get to the point where they're like, oh wait, that's what you're doing? No. And we did have, I think, 2 people, when we told them, you know, you got the part, this is what we're doing, they got scared and pulled out. We even had a location manager who was like, I don't want to, you know, mess with the corporation. So, but the casting was I would say standard casting.
One of the things I think people always remark on is that the film looks so beautiful for a movie that is largely stolen shots. I mean, how much does shooting in black and white impact the work that you're doing on the day in that way as a cinematographer?
I mean, a black and white was picked as a stylistic choice, mostly by Randy, as a way to kind of like numb out some of the Disney experience. Because when you walk in the door there, it's completely visceral, it's completely colorful, and there's music playing, and there's just a horse-drawn carriage, and like all this magical stuff's happening, so it just attacks all your senses, and you're like, shit, I am in a good mood, you know? And so like the first thing we had to do was, how do we cut those legs out? And black and white was the first choice. And actually we made the decision due to the cameras that we basically had to make a decision no other movie does, where you have to film black and white and it stays black and white. Most people shoot color, and then there's always the chance to go back, but we kind of hardlined it based off of the lighting, because lighting for black and white is very different than color. And so we just stayed with it. And there's a few times it definitely saved us, where it's like, well, that's way too contrasty for a normal movie. But on black and white, it looks great, you know? So we...
Like, there were scenes when they were driving around in the cars, there was no way we would have been able to get the same color car every time. But a green car and a red car in black and white, not that different. So every time you saw them, yeah, there were a lot of things like that. Black and white helps.
Tip for indie filmmakers. It's a
Yeah,
valuable tip.
and the park is so different in black and white. And the main thing was I didn't want it to look like a home movie, because I can't even watch my own home movies at the park. They're so boring. So we did. We wanted it black and white, and we tried to lock it off as much. We didn't want it to have a found footage feel. And most of the time, you're not used to seeing that environment in black and white.
Well, and it also helped just because you have like very little control over what part of the screen the audience is looking at, because normally you use lighting or some sort of focus element to control that. So there you have no control. You can't control where extras go. So it helped to like put the actors. Most of them are in really light clothes or very distinguishable shirts like this one. So the black and white really like helped these things pop. And so the audience's eye was drawn immediately to where you would want it to be on the screen. So that was another big bonus.
We are going to have to wrap this up pretty quickly, but we have any last questions out there? Right there in the back, that young lady directly for me. How did you get any of the shots after closing or before opening the park?
Okay, but I can tell you if you all promise not to tell anyone. It's so sad because it's not sexy at all. All we did was we got there really early in the morning for like 6 or 7 days in a row, and we were like the first people in line for the park to open. They opened the gates. We'd run ahead of everyone, and we'd have like 10 to 15 seconds to get shots. That would come from behind us and wreck our... And so we did that. Where we had Lucas, myself, and our AC. We all had cameras, and we all had stations where we were going to go. And after like 7 days, we had enough footage to make it look like we, hopped the fence and
And once again, you would think it was weird for 3 grown men running through a theme park with big backpacks full of cameras. Nobody thought anything about it. Nor were we the only ones running.
All right, one last question in, very back row, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
You had some green screen in the room.
You are correct.
Decided to shoot after the fact, or was that green screen stuff planned ahead of time?
There was both involved. There was some green screen that we'd always had planned because we just wanted more control. Like for a long scene, like the park bench scene, you know, where he's eating the turkey leg and she's talking to him. We wanted to be able to really control that scene, and we didn't think we could do that in the parks. There were a few scenes that we had to do on green screen because we just decided at the very end that people were starting to get a little freaked out, and it was just safer. So, but there weren't too many things we added because we couldn't get out, but there were a few.
So how do you follow this up? I mean, Universal Islands of Adventure isn't quite as exciting a location. I mean, what's next for you guys?
A quiet period piece. I'm serious. I'm really serious.
Okay, well, guys, thank you so much for coming. Thank you guys for staying. Escape from Tomorrow.
Thank you for coming.
And enjoy the rest of your festival.